for those of you who haven't seen the show before, my brother and I bet against Boston teams with the hope of purchasing victories for the Boston teams. So we've bet on the Knicks in all sorts of different ways to win the series. I could go on, but yeah, I was on the Knicks last night. I'm on them +5 in game 5. I'm on them +165. I'm on them +125 to win the Eastern Conference. You know what's going to happen to me, Gresh? I have the Indiana Pacers 42-1 to win the Eastern Conference. That's going to dump, right? I have a Knicks ticket in here, 12-1 to win the championship. That's going to dump, right? So the Knicks are going to get to the finals and probably lose. So I won't hit my money. But yeah, are the Knicks going to win the championship? I mean, Bostonians can't be thrilled today.
Well, it all depends on who's on the other side. Quite honestly, if it's Golden State, I think Golden State, New York matches up better against them than they do, say, Denver. So it really, who's coming through on the West? Because I'm with you. I think it's going to be Indiana and New York in an Eastern Conference Finals. And then, which matchup do we get? Do we get the old guys in Denver and Golden State? Or do we get the youngs with SGA and Ant-Man pushing through with Oklahoma City and Minnesota? Ant-Man appears to be the one guy this postseason who has the ability to drag his team around further than they should go.
Yeah, well, and Golden State down 3-1. I think even with a return of Steph, I think game 6 he's targeting. I think it's going to be tough for Golden State to get through that series. But gosh, I mean, the fact that we're even talking about this, but I think the Knicks, I mean, I said this earlier, I think the Knicks are a much better team on Tuesday, May 13th than they were a few weeks ago. I don't look at them the way I looked at them even a week ago. I absolutely, dare I say, love the roster. And I think Tom Thibodeau, as a defensive coach, I think he's done miraculous things. I mean, there's not been a lot of room for the Celtics to operate down the stretch of those games. And when you have a guy like Jalen Brunson leading in that fashion, I mean, every time the ball leaves his hand, it just doesn't feel great as a Celtics fan. And the Celtics, even when they're shooting well, it's all 3-point shots. So inevitably, the law of averages, they ain't all going to go in.
And you got to give Leon Rose, the guy who's running the Knicks, credit. He was an agent, and I thought, here's just some, a-hole that knows Jimmy Dolan, another a-hole. But he's done a good job, and you look at all the picks they give up from Mikal Bridges, and you could argue that if you're going to move away from, say, the superstars in the series, if you take out Brunson and you take out Tatum, who's been one of the more impressive guys in this series, it's been Bridges. So those draft picks look like they were worthwhile capital to give up to find a guy that has clearly been what I thought Porzingis would be in beating New York is what Bridges has been in beating Boston.
It's a great comp. He brings it on both ends. He heated up at the end of game 2 and was the reason they won game 2. He hadn't had a point until the fourth quarter. I think maybe 15 points the fourth quarter, lit it up there. He's been great ever since. It's exciting for Knicks fans. Can we talk about the Red Sox so we can stop talking about the Celtics?
Yeah,
because I got to. I'm going to lose my mind.
No, and John Henry actually showed up as owner this past week where, I don't know, there must have been an open leg on a private jet somewhere for old John Henry to jump on and go to Kansas City and have a conversation with Rafael Devers, where then, if I've got this right, no one who was in the room came out and spoke on what the conversation was about. I think we heard from Breslow where it was a positive conversation and things like that. Jay, I don't know how to take this. The fact, I don't know whether to be like, wow, John Henry got off his ass and actually tried to be an owner. Or, man, Rafi Devers effed up so much, he caused John Henry to get off his ass and actually have to try to be an owner for once and go talk to a player that he gave a butt ton of money to in, by the way, a very reactionary way. Let's all remember, Rafi Devers got his contract in part not because he was the best player on the roster. He got his contract in part because they screwed the pooch with Mookie, and that was a way to make fans happy. So it wasn't like there was a lot of history where you said, man, this is a person and a human and someone that I know will do the right thing that I spend money on. It was, holy Jesus, we didn't realize people would be this mad at Mookie. Let's turn around and sign this guy.
I agree with all of that, but I still actually like the contract. I like the stick, and I think the contract in this age of sports doesn't age that poorly, right? Mookie's contract looks like a crazy bargain, some due to the times. But what I'll say about John Henry coming down, right? My uncle, who I ran a business with for many years, I love his expression. He said, you have to break eggs to make an omelet. right? And I love nipping it in the bud right away. I would much rather than things stewing under the surface, that he comes down, has whatever tough conversation needs to be had. Rafael Devers is still young, could be impressionable in the right, but I like bringing it all to the surface, right? This year is super important. I think there's a great chance that Alex Bregman is one and done. I would be trying to rip up that contract and lock him up long-term right now if I were Boston, because, if this becomes a shit show, how much does he want to stick around? A lot of good pieces with Crochet and things going the right way. So I actually like this, whether or not he plays first base at all or not. But also too, right, I think he's hit pretty well since the meeting, right? So I really like sometimes, whenever I've had a tough conversation personally or in business and it was authentic and it was real, it's always had good results. So I actually think if this team's going to do anything as they hover around 500, might as well break it open now.
Well, when you look at the last 5 for Devers, 1 for 1, 2 for 3, 4 for 4, 1 for 5, and 2 for 3 in terms of just batting. So you're right. And Devers is not having a terrible year. I think the issue for me is, Shay, why now are we 35 games in and the owner is going to the player to now have a conversation with him when others couldn't get through? To me, if you're at the top of the masthead and you have so much time in spring training, then that's where the owner says, this is how important it is to me, right? Not, oh shit, the dam broke. Now let me be the guy to retroactively come and fix it. And I don't begrudge Rafi Devers completely from the, hey, why are you jacking me around standpoint? If you want me to do one thing or do something else, then fine. So I understand Devers kind of throwing the hand in the air. I guess what I don't understand is, why did it take so long for the owner to say to this particular player, hey, we've had a, that's it. Well, I think the part of it is that John Henry and Rafi Devers have no relationship. So where you would normally, like if this were David Ortiz, John Henry would have been roaming around in the clubhouse down upon Mountain High trying to figure out what's going on. There hasn't been any of that relationship development the way John Henry did in the previous decade.
Well, right. Now, more like previous quarter century. It's a long time ago. But what I'll say about John Henry, right? He's had some success in his business career, right? He's a soft-spoken guy, whether you like John Henry or not. But however the communication was mishandled, right? And certainly my guess is Craig Breslow maybe doesn't always press the right personal buttons, right? And I believe that Alex Cora was maybe in a position where he couldn't necessarily drive the bus in this situation. So John Henry coming down to me, sitting down, I believe that he probably approached it in a very kind, soft-spoken, diplomatic, loving manner, and probably was smart enough to talk to Rafael Devers in a way where he really felt the love. I really do believe that. I believe that John Henry thought he was uniquely positioned to be the one to come down and do this. And Gresh, I'll be honest with you, I haven't read a bunch about this because I don't give a shit enough to read about what others' opinions of this were. I think there are a lot of things about John Henry that in a room can probably translate very well. And I bet he delivered some news Rafi didn't want to hear, but I bet it was accompanied by some good things and maybe delivered in maybe a perfect manner. Just one's opinion.
Well, hopefully he knows Spanish to do that.
Well,
and I'm not joking, but seriously, do you think John Henry walked in that room and said, "Como te llamas?" That's another part of this too, is because what you say, John Henry has that ability. But if you're doing it through an interpreter, how in the world is any messaging getting home?
I disagree.
This is what
I disagree. It's a necessary evil. We don't know what the embrace was like when he first saw him and how that made Rafi feel.